Welcome to our Gentcament page. Today, we will introduce you to the world's top 10 fighter jets. These aircraft, which define air superiority, are more than just speed and power. Each one is a living symbol of its country's years of engineering experience, billions of dollars in investments, and military strategies. Our list features the greatest fighter jets in the skies of many countries, from the United States to Russia, from Europe to Asia. These aircraft patrol the skies not only for combat, but also for deterrence. Moreover, when compiling the rankings, we considered not only technical specifications, but also modernization status, maintenance costs, battlefield-proven performance, and price effectiveness. In other words, aircraft that not only break speed records, but also have the potential to change the course of a war were highlighted. In short, this list will be the most up-to-date and comprehensive ranking that reveals true combat power. If you're ready, let's take a step-by-step look at the world's best fighter jets. Now let's get to know our fourth-ranked aircraft. Is the Su-35 the last roar of a fading era, or the one jet that can still embarrass invisible enemies? In a world obsessed with stealth, this machine picked a different weapon: raw, impossible agility. Today, we're stress-testing the legend against reality, sensors, missiles, and the cold math of modern air combat. Because the question isn't how wild it can maneuver, it's whether those moves still matter when you're already on someone's screen. If the answer flips what you thought you knew, good, because that's exactly where this story begins. The story of the Su-35 doesn't begin with the Su-35 at all. It begins in the late Cold War, when the Soviet Union looked across the ocean and saw America's new pride, the F-15 Eagle, a machine built for air superiority, meant to outclimb, outfight, and outlast anything else in the sky. Moscow could not allow that gap. Its answer was the Su-27 Flanker, a jet so massive it looked like a flying battleship, yet so agile it could twist and turn with the grace of a much smaller fighter. The secret? A radical wing body design, and the Soviet Union's very first digital flight control system. In training exercises, this new predator stunned Western observers. More than once, it managed to outmaneuver the Eagle it had been designed to counter. Suddenly, the West realized the Flanker wasn't just another Soviet copy. It was a statement, a declaration that the USSR could still contest the skies. That is where the legend begins. But legends don't last forever, and the next chapter would nearly erase the Flanker from history. By the late 1980s, Soviet engineers were already dreaming of something beyond the Su-27. They envisioned a Flanker that could do the impossible: track 15 targets at once, lock onto 6, and still dance through the air like no other jet alive. This vision took shape as the Su-27M. Canards were added near the cockpit for sharper agility. A powerful new bars radar was fitted. Even the tail and landing gear were re-engineered to survive brutal dogfights and heavy landings. For a brief moment, it looked like the Soviets had built a fighter that could leapfrog straight into the future. And then history intervened. The Soviet Union collapsed. Budgets vanished. Production lines froze. The Su-27M, once hailed as a glimpse of tomorrow, was shelved, left to gather dust. It became known as a lost generation of fighters. Born too soon, abandoned too quickly. But history has a way of resurrecting lost ideas. And decades later, those forgotten blueprints would roar back to life under a new name. The 2000s were turbulent years for Russian aviation. The long-promised fifth-generation Su-57 was running into delays, leaving Moscow desperate for a stopgap. A fighter that could keep its air force credible while the world marched toward stealth. The solution was bold yet familiar: revive the lost dreams of the Su-27M, re-engineer them with modern electronics, and strip away what no longer made sense. The result was the Su-35S, a jet presented not as a relic, but as a rebirth. One of the most dramatic changes was the removal of the canards. To some, this looked like a downgrade. Those extra fins had symbolized extreme maneuverability. But new flight control computers and thrust vectoring engines meant the jet could achieve the same mind-bending agility without them. And by losing the canards, its radar signature shrank, giving it at least a whisper of stealth. In 2008, the first new generation Su-35 roared into the sky. For Russia, it wasn't just another aircraft. It was a statement to the world. The flanker legacy was not finished yet. But dazzling air shows and test flights are one thing. The true test would come against the unforgiving realities of modern combat. When the Su-35 takes to the skies, it doesn't just fly, it performs. Its twin Saturn AL-41F-1S engines, each with thrust vectoring nozzles, let the jet twist, pivot, and even slide sideways in mid-air. Airshow crowds gasp at the Cobra maneuver, when the nose snaps skyward, and the jet seems to hang motionless before diving back into control. To pilots, these aren't party tricks. They're proof of a machine that bends the laws of aerodynamics. Its radar, capable of tracking multiple enemies at once, gives the Su-35 vision as sharp as its reflexes. Missiles can be launched in volleys, locking onto several targets simultaneously. On paper, it reads like the perfect predator. Fast, agile, and armed to the teeth. But here's the catch. No matter how jaw-dropping its stunts or how powerful its radar, modern air combat isn't a circus. Today, the enemy may already see you long before you even know they're there. So the question looms, does all that breathtaking agility actually matter when stealth rules the battlefield? For all its brilliance, the Su-35 carries one flaw it can never truly shake. It is not a stealth jet. Against aircraft like America's F-22 Raptor, or F-35 Lightning II, or even China's rising J-20, the Su-35's radar cross-section is bigger, brighter, and harder to hide. In a world where the first to see is often the first to kill, this puts the flanker at a crushing disadvantage. Russian designers tried to fight back with clever tricks: radar-absorbing coatings, reduced infrared signatures, and electronic warfare systems meant to blind enemy sensors. And in close combat, its unmatched agility could, in theory, let it turn the tables. But here's the expectation versus reality twist. Modern air battles are rarely fought in knife-range dogfights anymore. Missiles scream across dozens of miles, guided by stealth and satellite networks. Against those odds, raw maneuverability is a weapon from another age. And yet, the Su-35 refuses to be dismissed. Because while stealth may dominate the future, wars are still fought in the messy, unpredictable present. And that's exactly where the flanker has already been tested. The Su-35 has already faced the proving ground of real conflict. In Syria, it patrolled skies heavy with drones, coalition aircraft, and hostile defenses. Its presence wasn't just about combat, it was about signaling, Russia showcasing its most advanced fighter to the world. On paper, the Su-35 was a terror. In practice, the results were mixed. It demonstrated dominance in close encounters and carried out precision strikes, but it never truly faced an F-22 or F-35 in open battle. Its reputation grew more from display than duel. Yet other nations took notice. China purchased Su-35s to bolster its own air force while waiting for J-20 production. Egypt signed deals despite political risks. Even Indonesia considered adding it to its fleet before Western sanctions forced hesitation. For Moscow, every export contract was a victory, proof that the flanker still had global appeal. And here lies the contradiction. The Su-35 is celebrated as one of the most maneuverable jets alive. But its greatest challenge is not enemies in the sky. It's the relentless march of technology leaving it behind. The question now isn't whether it can perform. It's whether performance alone is enough when the next generation is already here. The Su-35 was never meant to be Russia's ultimate weapon. It was a bridge, a powerful stopgap answer while engineers struggled to finish the Su-57 stealth fighter. And now, as sixth-generation projects stir in the US, Europe, and China, the flanker stands at a crossroads. Some argue it's the last great non-stealth fighter, proof that sheer power and agility can still matter in an age of invisible enemies. Others see it as a transitional relic, an aircraft that dazzled on the airshow stage but will never dictate the skies of the 2030s. What cannot be denied is this. The Su-35 carries the DNA of a lost Soviet prototype, resurrected to fight in a new century. It's a machine built on both nostalgia and necessity, a reminder of how far aviation has come and how far it still has to go. So the ultimate question remains unanswered. Will history remember the Su-35 as a swan song, or as the roar that refused to fade? The Su-35 story is one of brilliance born from desperation. It rose from the ashes of a collapsed empire, stunned the world with maneuvers that seemed to defy physics, and fought for relevance in an age where stealth is king. Its agility, its radar, its sheer presence in the sky, these remain undeniable. But against the shadowy silhouettes of stealth fighters, its future feels uncertain. And maybe that's what makes the Su-35 so fascinating. It isn't just a jet, it's a symbol of transition, the last echo of a generation that believed dominance could be seen, heard, and felt, not hidden. Whether it stands as the final champion of visible power, or a stepping stone to something greater, its place in aviation history is secure. So the next time you see it twist and tumble across the sky, ask yourself, are you watching the end of an era, or the spark of one more surprise still to come? If you want to explore where the next era of air combat is headed, stick around, because the story that follows will challenge everything you think you know about the future of war in the skies.